Sanders with American Patchwork and Quilting. Today's video is being brought to you by Baby Lock and the Crescendo sewing machine. Today we want to take a look at 1/4 inch seams and sewing accurate ones. They're so important in patchwork and quilting. The first thing I want to show you or tell you about is your sewing machine probably has a default of maybe a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and that's because most people are buying sewing machines to do things like garments and home dec, and those use 3/8 and 5/8 seams. So when you turn your sewing machine on, it's automatically going to default to a certain seam allowance, and it's probably not a 1/4 inch. So what can you do? Well, the first thing you can do, and the easiest thing probably when you turn your machine on, is just move that needle over until it's in the 1/4 inch seam allowance position. So we've turned on our machine, and what we would do is just go to the machine and either manually, or if it's an electronic machine, move it to the position where that needle is in that 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now, I have a machine that I had to do that on, and sometimes I would forget. And so then you end up sewing some things and you don't have that 1/4 inch seam allowance. So it's always a good idea, if that's your machine, then maybe you'll want to try one of these other things. So what I did is I got a 1/4 inch foot. So this is what the 1/4 inch foot looks like for the Crescendo, and you can see here it's got this little guide, little bumper on the side. So when you put this on your machine and you're putting your fabric through it, this bumper right here helps to keep your fabric in the correct position. Now, something else that you can do is use some masking tape. This is just masking tape that you can buy at the store, and then build up some layers, 5 or 6 layers, and you can see it's got a little bit of stiffness to it. Then what you do is you take this masking tape little bumper thing that you've created, and you're going to go over to your sewing machine, and with a small ruler, or in this case the sewing machine also has the 1/4 inch listed right here on the line, you're going to put that little masking tape bumper down. And again, it's sticky on that bottom layer because of the tape, and you can put that and use that as your guide. And then again, when you're sewing your seams or putting your patchwork through, you just guide it right up next to that layer of masking tape. Okay, so there's 3 things. Now I have one more thing that actually takes a little bit of sewing. So what you should do is cut 3 1 1/2 inch strips, and they don't have to be very long. These are about 5 inches. So we have 3 strips that we've cut at 1 1/2 inches. Then we're going to go ahead and sew those 3 strips together. After you've sewn your 3 1 1/2 inch wide strips together, you'll want to check and make sure that that center strip is exactly 1 inch. Because then what happens is you end up with a 1/4 inch seam allowance on each side, but that center strip, if that's 1 inch, you've sewn it accurately, and you want to check all the way down the seam to make sure that it's accurate all the way down. Then you're ready to go on to the rest of your pieces and sew them together. So one or more of these tips will help you get that accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance that you need to do your patchwork and quilting.